It is again December 7, 2024, and I am sitting with reflections around Yeshua and the Magdala lineages, so commonly known as Jesus and Mary, also known as Yeshua, and Mary Magdalene. The main thing that I've been sitting with is a reflection around what is happening in Palestine, what's happening in the sacred lands from which Jesus descended, from which Yeshua descended, and everything that is being prayed for in the process of the great sacrifices that are happening there, the great martyrdoms that are happening there, the great intentional genocide and killing that's happening there in relation to this time of the massive resurrection of Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness can be understood in many ways. So, you know, there's an invitation for us to tune into what does Christ consciousness mean for us uniquely. And then there's also an invitation to express that, because there are things that we can learn from one another in discerning from our hearts and then expressing what Christ consciousness means to us uniquely. And in my process of distillation, of discernment, of like heart introspection around Christ consciousness, it is so profoundly, sophisticatedly simple in some ways, and then in other ways it's not. And simple in terms of I can say that Christ consciousness is infinite love, infinite love, infinite love, infinite love. And on the what's complicated, what can become complicated or complex is what does that look like somatically, embodiedly, relationally, infinite love. And there was a moment in my life where I had reflected on Christ consciousness, and what came to me was like this trust and the surrender. In Tagalog, we might call it the Bahala na, the Bathala, or one of the great creator spirits in our pantheon, in our cosmology of those from whom we descended in our lineage of humanity and our lineage of life. We descended from one of the great beings called Bathala. And some people will also connect Bathala to this energy of Bahala na, maybe one translation of Bahala na would be it's really I've been in so many conversations where we translate this, and it's really interesting. I find myself with Bahala na right now, maybe a few things that come, like let it go, although that's very loose. There's like Bahala na, just surrender to the divine, let it be to the divine. Kind of this expression of like let it be in let it coalesce with the divine order and surrender to the divine order. And there's a trust in like natural law, which is the cosmic algorithm that is encoded into the cosmos. So this cosmic algorithm encoded into the cosmos, that at a certain point in my journey with Christ consciousness, I really felt this connection between, and I still do, between natural law, i.e. the infinite cosmic algorithm that is the primordial observer and the primordial omniscient sort of mathematician of justice and of equity and of the karmic law that we are inevitably dancing with at all moments, that natural law. And the way that I would come to process it is reflecting on Jesus being on the cross when he was crucified and saying in his last breath, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Or that is one of the translations of what he said in one of his last moments. "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do," and to ask for that forgiveness to those people who are literally crucifying him, who have literally chosen to enact this deep violence on him for really their own inaccurate perceptions of reality and their own fears and their own anxieties, sacrificing somebody, choosing actively to crucify somebody, and him asking Creator to forgive these people. That is an ultimate expression of the belief in natural law. And that is one kind of way that Christ consciousness can be understood as this trust in the natural law, the natural divine order, the omniscient mathematician that karmically autocorrects all of the implications of our actions in the universe towards justice and towards balance and towards us experiencing what we cause the experience of in some form. And not in a way that is punitive, not in a way that is malicious, not in a way that is malevolent, but in a way that is just fair. And that always being in this divine order. I'm bringing that up because at this moment, these questions of Christ consciousness, especially in relation to what is happening in the region of the region from which Yeshua has descended, is really present, and there's a deep presence in the land of that wisdom and of those questions. And as I sit with those questions personally, there's a huge invitation to sit with questions around the representations of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in the Yeshua and Magdalene lineages. And at this moment, the invitation for the proliferation and the resurrection of the divine masculine that Jesus so fully embodied, that Yeshua so fully embodied. And someone who I consider a very, very prime teacher, while I haven't met this person in person or done any one-on-one sessions with them, I've learned really deeply from their Instagram profile, Keone Hanolei, Bahala, Hawaiian Botanicals. And there's a highlight section on his stories in which he speaks about the mystery, the fern of mystery, and a lot of his work is around unraveling, expressing, sharing the stories of the codes of the ferns that were one of the only main living archives of emotional coding in the transition from the cataclysmic era to the post-cataclysmic era, if I'm understanding correctly, and I might need to revise myself, but there's a great emotional coding that is held in a very historically magnificent and ancient way by the fern medicine that are still in the conscious awareness of folks in Hawaii and perhaps other parts of the world, while Keone really archives this from his lineages, cosmology in the Mu lineage of Hawaii. And he speaks about the fern of mystery, which is a hybrid between the rose and the fern. And this is actually the fern that is the sort of the fern that is carried by the Magdalene lineage. And one of the main reflections that I'm taking to heart from that specific highlight is how the mystery upon which the mystery schools of the Magdala lineage are kind of foundational expression. So a foundational expression of the mystery school of the Magdala lineage, descended from Mary Magdalene, is this trust, the celebration, the surrender to the mystery. However, because of the deficiency of the divine masculine, the deficiency of the embodied masculine, which upholds the responsibilities of providing heart-centered safety, there has been this corruption of the Magdalene lineage, where instead of surrender to the mystery, surrender to this trust that is part of the sort of like DNA of the Christ consciousness, like the trust in like the divine order, the natural law. I'm getting emotional. There is this culture that is very much reflective of the immature, the juvenile masculine, as opposed to the divine masculine. And there's also an immature and juvenile feminine. There's a toxic feminine, and there's also a divine feminine, which you can talk more about. But instead of there being this surrender, this mystery, in the Magdala lineage, there's actually an attachment, a fixation to algorithmic prediction culture, to wanting to know and control, because of the absence, the dearth, the deficiency of the embodied masculine energy that supports for there to be a surrender. And so what we're witnessing, not just in the Magdala lineages or the mystery lineages, and the mystery lineages, and also more broadly in the culture of humanity, is this fixation with control, this fixation with wanting to predict and know, because it is a response, it's like a coping mechanism, it's a reaction to, again, the deficiency, the dearth of safety provided by the masculine, caused by the deficiency of that sort of rooted and grounded masculine. And when I say all of this, it makes me very emotional, because I feel so deeply for all of us, not, beyond gender. It's like whatever sort of incarnation that we have chosen in this lifetime, this impacts all of us. And like, Goddess knows, I know I've been a dude in so many of my past lifetimes, like so many, like, and we've all had so many lifetimes prior to this in various forms. And Goddess knows that I've grappled with this deficiency as well in my own internal field, and then also in my relational field as a woman in this lifetime, who's been in relationship with men who I've deeply loved and been deeply, I felt deeply not supported by at certain moments, and knowing that is not an individual thing to pathologize, but that there's something cultural there. And I'm sitting with all of that as I like really tune into what is my responsibility within all of this? Like, what is my freedom? What is my choice? What is my responsibility? Because it is so important for me, given my value system at this moment in my life, to whenever I offer a critique and I'm with the emotional capacity in a coherent way to offer a solution immediately, rather than just critique something, that is my devotion. I have definitely been in phases of my life where I have needed to, and that has been my devotion at that part of my life, just criticize and criticize and criticize, and that's fine. So there's those phases that we need to be in for various reasons, and I'm very much at a place where I like feel like my responsibility, my utmost responsibility, as soon as I offer any critique, is to embody a solution. And so I'm sitting in a place where I feel the importance of also just sitting with it and feeling all of the feelings that come up as I like reflect on, the distortions of the mystery lineages by virtue of the by virtue of the deficiency of the embodied masculine energy in all of us in different ways, regardless of our gender in this lifetime. But also, I'm sitting with like, what is the practical solution that is very much relational, that is very much introspective as well. And what I'm coming to is like this invitation just to always be as truthful as I can in every moment, in every single relationship. Like, it comes back to that. And to refine this instrument that is my body, my voice, to be able to attune to, in more nuanced ways, what is the truth of what is surfacing, so I can name the distortions. I feel like that's my responsibility at the moment, and it brings up a lot of like questions around everything. So I'm sitting with those questions. I'm sitting in devotion to those questions, and I'm sitting with gratitude for those questions. And that's all I feel called to share for now. That's all.